Through the words of Clarence E. Flynn, you said to me,
"Why do you feel me? I'm your friend. I but guide travelers rounding the bend. Lead them to freedom from dying age. Help them start writing on a new page. Seek the meaning never. Keep your course true. When I am needed, I'll come to you, and I will show you roads without end. Why do you feel? I'm your friend."
So, to death, 8 years later, in response, I say, I am now shedding my invisible suit of armor that is battered with scars from wars I've been placed in the middle of because of some form of affiliation to any form of relativity I have with any schools of thought. I'm shedding this armor because wearing it is too painful. This armor that, by default, got molded onto my body as I was finding my way through this world, even with the relearning that comes with shedding the old armor that was already on the verge of collapsing from my body. Because of batterings they endured from the raid of new knowledge that occurs when I step out of the bed to face the world one more day. You see, when you accept that life itself is a giant school that quenches your thirst for knowledge, then every walking step becomes a trigger that pushes the armor to flesh, which ultimately becomes its undoing. But I'm not speaking of those armors that 13 ghosts of my persistent ghostry dream alluded to, the ghosts of me from time gone by. I have to assume because I didn't recognize those memories on those walls that nostalgia painted familiar when I crossed the threshold of that door one time. I'm speaking of the armor that holds the story itself. The armor that is a tree for the metaphor that I am. The tree that I became the moment I crossed the threshold of the door and entered its rugged trunk. The giant eerie tree I saw on a newspaper clipping at an abandoned bus station, I found myself standing in while chasing the Dancing with the Wind newspaper. This tree that holds 13 ghosts of myself from lives gone by. I want to shed this armor that is this haunted ghost tree, because I just can't do it anymore. Carrying the weight of this heavy cast iron, large enough to hold shards of 12 other armors with its trembling rigidity, its tremors so strong from the battering it receives from the associations these ghosts created that I created out of a desperate need to keep their broken pieces together. This armor that built itself from lessons learned, from observations made, that I contributed to through my own perceptions. This armor that is supposed to be a safe haven, my only serendipity within an otherwise crumbling world, this armor feels too painful to carry. And here's the thing, I don't think it's meant to be. I'm choosing to shed this armor because it's a need at this point. The bullets ricochet off the cast iron, but leave behind a deafening gong that leaves me disoriented for days. This armor that existed as a means to protect me from those very bullets now leave me disoriented for days. And I forget everything, down to who I am. I forget that I am. I'm disoriented for days. A few days ago, the armor met salty ocean that ebbed and flowed in its own melancholic rhythm. The armor changed. Of course it did. It's natural for iron to rust when thrust into salt water. What was bound to happen when iron met my inner ocean? It became a rusty heap that burned me from the inside. And to this day, my skin remembers the itch I felt before I took off the armor. And to this day, my skin tingles, begging for the armor to be taken off again, long after the armor has melted into disintegration. You see, this armor has been off of me for years, and every now and again, like a few days ago, when the tides of my inner ocean rose, my body remembers wearing an armor. Only when the bullets hit this time, they penetrate through the invisible iron that I feel in theory and puncture a hole on my skin. I take off this armor symbolically again because if there's anything that surpasses the pain of the bullets disorienting my days, it is the wonderful spring that extinguishing hauntings brings. The freedom to frolic far further than the confines of my armor allowed me to. I need to take this armor off again symbolically to remind myself that there is so much more to see than what the armor's imprisoning mask allowed me to see. And yes, though the bullets may disorient me for days, they come nowhere close to the satisfaction that comes with liberation. I'm shedding this armor because it isn't a part of my story anymore. The newspaper image of the tree with 13 specters is no more a visual phenomenon than can be perceived in this dimension. The landscape wouldn't allow it. Not where I was when death's night found and recruited me. Meanwhile, I had put on the shelf another armor I found at the point where I was, to camouflage myself amidst the landscape of bodies cascading along the banks of the river blood. I don't want to be another corpse feeding the river blood. Not when I have these stories to share with others who surely chose to survive the massacre of individuality. And here I sit, shedding that armor, having survived the night's sword. I see him on the horizon, you know. I saw him when I first took my armor off. I see him every so often roaming the halls of my attic, carrying premonitions of the ghost tree like a game of hide and go seek. A legend they say only 13 saw in their subconscious landscape, me, and the 12 versions of me from times and lives gone by, as I discovered mere days ago. And you ask me why I hold on so dearly to death. I'm taking the suit of armor off. Death has been on the horizon, waiting to take what was his. This cloak, the one that mirrors what he carries upon his bones. You see, when I wore that armor to elude death, it's iron imprisonment painting my peripheral vision the color of fear. The same fear that led me so far away from everything I alluded to my soul's desire. It rendered me lost behind the charade of protection. And when I took this armor off all those years ago, the ghosts lost their home. And in their grief, adopted their own rage-filled armors and became the poltergeists that mocked my every action from the sidelines. Now, while I reflect about death and reminisce about his significance towards me being where I am today, I see how it all connects to the image of the ghost tree I saw last summer. The one with the tree surrounded by 13 specters. After walking through realms of fictional fantasy riddled with stories about one hill house, a collection of painted horrors inspired by both fabled poetics of fiction as well as horrors buried and built over, I obsessively searched for the ghost stories with a hope that they were just as fictional as hill house. It all brought me back to death on the horizon. I take this armor off to remind death that I am not afraid of him coming to collect shards of leftover armors from versions of me long gone. They do not exist in physicality, but their presence rang in my experience, ever eluding his sword. The same way the presence of these ghosts linger in the atmosphere within the seemingly hollow shell of a tree with 13 spectral schools of light like will-o'-the-wisps. But spirits guide their perceiver through whatever story lives within the atmosphere of their inner escapes. Because what is seen in the outside world is a reflection of an inner one. So, if I perceive wisps in the first place, they are an outer manifestation of everything that's in my inner landscape. The blue ones. And they adopted this inner dreamscape as an extension of their own story. And death, he's watching. As I walk to the threshold of this imaginary landscape, take myself through fantastic journeys, holding various remembrances through pieces of music that bring back the same nostalgia I felt when I journeyed beyond the threshold of this tree. Learning slowly that the nostalgia I felt when I recalled these memories, this time as the observer, the fly on the wall of the protective shell, brought me back to the realization that I am that shell, that tree, those songs, those memories, those ghosts, they are all me. Taking off the armor you see is not equivalent to me cutting down the tree. The tree was never cut down. It took me 8 years worth of experiences with death playing a dramatic symphony in the background, with a lingering reminder, if you're afraid of death, you're afraid of life. And I just want to suspend time so that I can take stock of what I've missed in the time that lapsed itself for those 8 years, so I remember that my home is still intact. The tree was never hollow. It carries the stories I collected in blue, the ones written on its walls. In shedding my armor again, I lift the weight off of myself so that this story can complete itself across all perceivable dimensions of experience, coming full circle to realize just how everything is its own kind of spiral.